And let's start with the introductions. So I'm gonna take a seat in the mirror and say, I'm Tevo. Today I'm gonna facilitate this this meeting, and I've been here from Fund 1, so I have been actively participating as proposer and as community advisor. And so I just want to share my experience to the people in an open way, what I have learned, and what I like to do, which is what I personally like to do is I like to architect the big solutions and just to experiment how they work and listen to the feedback, and definitely like a critical feedback. The more negative it is, the higher chance I can improve. And I'm gonna pass the turn to Scott.
I'm fairly new. I've been around only since, well, Fund 3 I started watching. Want to do a proposal, but I just haven't got too much going on there. Yeah, I'm on my iPad, so I don't have access to the Miro board, so.
That's okay. You can see the screen, right?
Yeah. And so I'm also in the Plutus Pioneer cohort number 2, trying to keep up with that. So I've been a developer for a lot of years, so maybe close to 25. So.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. I'm Stephen. I'm co-hosting with Tevo, supporting him, and I've been around since around about Fund 3. March time, I put in my own Fund 5 proposal, QA DAO, and I've worked on other proposals as well. So I'm just sort of here to take part in this process of doing a mini proposals and see if we can have some take some ideas from the beginning through to take a short proposal through from the beginning and see how far we can develop it. Tyler, would you like to?
Okay. Hey guys.
Hi.
My name's Tyler. I've been around since about, I guess, Fund 2. I voted on in Fund 2. I didn't really participate other than going to town halls and voting. Fund 3, I was part of the NFT DAO, comprehensive NFT framework. I got funded, but I left that project. And now, I guess I come from a background of like technology and media. For about 10 years, I've been working developing content and also using mobile applications. And one of the things I've noticed is that when trying to solve problems, a lot of times people try to solve this really big problem, like with the big problems, and then break it down into smaller problems, and it turns into this like never-ending smaller problems, and the big problem never actually gets solved. And I like the approach of solving one problem first and seeing where that leads, kind of like I guess it's like a point, and then if you solve that one little problem with some proposals, it might do that comes up, and then you kind of solve that, and it creates more of an expanding framework versus starting big and that makes it, I don't know. But I like the idea of the mini proposal, because you start with like one very small defined problem, you solve it, and then it's like, okay, you learn something, and then you move on from it. That's just it. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Okay, so the next step, what is mini proposal? So it's Tyler already kind of said it. It's a one modular approach where we take a specific problem, we try to find the root cause, and then we step into the solution, trying to also find the quickly find the best approaches and like scope it down to specific action. So it's gonna create a modular on a solution step already. So we have like different modules for the solution, and further there we're gonna like add more stuff like do we need branding there, and if we do, then how we're gonna do that, and the roles, and then it goes down to the nitty-gritty. Okay, how do we develop these modules, how much time it might take, what skills you need, and then we always circle back to the previous chapters, how to make it concise. And at the end, the idea is that you have all the key information to create the mini proposals. A few examples is that I created three mini proposals through the in Fund 4 and one overarching proposal. And just today, I was doing some voting and I looked up that the top 5 proposals were 3 of the mini proposals. So it did work very well with community advisors because their scope was so low, you can easily read it, you can understand what's going on, and you can make your decision based on that. So it's one good is like that just understandably is what wins community advisors, and what good also it does is if it's high ranking in a voting application, it's the first thing the application suggests you as for now. And I also kind of mentioned about the Fund 5 Treasury proposal. So the strategy is that all these mini proposals we are doing here, we also like to get some kind of treasury, so funding, so we can, as a community, also do a bit of experimenting on voting methods and allocating the funds before the idea scale. So usually the idea scale takes like, I don't know, like 12 weeks, and then you wait for another month to get the funding, and it takes a lot of time. But here, if you have a small scoped idea, you write it down, and then we can already do voting. Oh, okay, if it takes you 2 weeks to do it, let's get funded. And you don't have to wait for all these 3 or 4 months to actually start working on it. So now we are into the crux of decision. So first thing is we can here start with a new idea. So we brainstorm ideas, and then we're going to test out the process ourselves. The second approach is that in the Swarm session last Saturday, we run this experiment, and we could try continuing. Oh wait, this is we can continue try to improve somebody else's work. So the idea here is that I would like to experiment if like different people are able to continue a different idea and to make it. Yeah, so because that would be interesting. If you can do that, then it means that you can jump in any time and just constantly add feedback on an idea and make the idea pass through. And that also builds teams. And the third option is improve the workshop itself. So since we have this first iteration, I got all kinds of different feedback, how to improve it, what to add on that. And this creates like a task list of some sort, and we could start by taking what they want. They want a better guide or explanation for this kind of question, and then we brainstorm. Okay, how do we solve it? Which could be the best solution? So these 3 options right here are what we have to decide on right now. So which approach would you prefer? I start from the circle. So Scott.
I'm kind of a little bit undecided on whether we do the brainstorm for a new or try to pick up an existing and try to improve it. So I'm open to either of those.
Okay. I have one. I forgot to ask if anybody had questions before, but like, is anybody else right now wants to? Yeah, Stylers.
I'm just gonna. It's kind of a question, but brainstorming can lead. It can be never ending.
Yeah, I will make it.
Is how much brainstorming? Yeah, how much brainstorming has gone to where we are right now?
say about last time it took us 2 minutes to brainstorm.
Should we take a step back and do more brainstorming? Would it make sense just to improve?
You're breaking up a bit, Tyler. So,
Okay, cool.
I was saying last time it took us 1 to 2 minutes to brainstorm and get to the right action. So it was like the initial ideas you have and then scoping down.
what's the subject of the mini proposal that we're going to improve, Tyler? Oh, sorry, Tevo. Sorry.
Yes. Problem statement where we are not activating full potential of Cardano community, and there is a disconnect between potential collaborators and opportunities between project catalysts. And the solution, the scoped down solution for this was simple infographics about the catalyst process on Twitter and up-to-date information in what state you are in process on Twitter. So initially we would have to, this gives us the idea of what is about to happen, and that is 2 modules what kind of came up, and the entire rest of the process would be to go down either of that path to address one of these problem statements. So yeah, that's about the idea itself. Stephen, what do you prefer, continuing or new?
I mean, I quite like the idea of, I sort of agree with Tyler that brainstorming can lead us off in directions where we've already got something to discuss, potentially on, we already have a mini proposal too that we could work with. I mean, so I would quite like to run with what we have to work with to see how far we can develop it in this session.
Yes.
So,
Tyler thinks also, because like I don't take that brainstorming will take that much time. But if you have a burning idea, and then you can just say it out, and if, oh, that's a nice one, and it just starts a new flow. But yeah, Tyler, how do you feel? Existing one, new one, or architecture?
Sorry, Mike. I would go with an existing one. I would just keep building on what you did. So I guess I don't know. Maybe we don't need to do that. We need to figure out who can do the infographics, like set time. I don't know.
Well, we kind of.
I guess like how far do you want to get into? Because you have.
Yep.
Am I breaking up?
Yeah, you're a bit breaking up. That's why I am annoying you same time talking. To Melanie and Tim, I will go over one more time briefly what we are doing here. But before, like we introduced ourselves. So Scott is a Bluetooth pioneer and is a developer. Stephen helps to facilitate me in these mini proposals. He is also a QA advisor. I don't know how to say that. And Tyler is develops content for mobile applications, has collaborated in FTDA, and also part of Catalyst since Fund 1.
Fund 2.
Fund 2.
Fund 2, yeah.
Same for
not that long.
Same for me. So could you also, Melanie, give a brief introductions about your way into Cardano and who you are?
Crypto since 2018. I got scammed a lot. Went through a lot of different network marketing, all sorts of different stuff up and down. And finally, it would have been Charles's YouTube videos that brought me into Cardano, and recognized that this was a place to land. And so I've downsized everything else and put it into my stake pool, that eco pool that donates 30% of their profits to environmental projects. It just, it just feels really right. reason I'm in here is to try and figure out a way through smart contracts with real estate projects, crowdfunding projects, environmental projects. Oh, thank you. Whoever's typing this out for me, thank you so much, because I'm finding the Miro board is super overwhelming for me. I can't do both, so I want to really say thank you to whoever's typing those out. And I jumped into this one. I actually started in the fund proposals, but it was too overwhelming, so I jumped back here. I thought I would just watch, so I'm going to sit back and see what you guys are doing, because I'm sorry I came in late as well.
It's
if that's okay.
It's okay. Melanie. Next one, I see Simon took a seat. Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, wait, you can't hear me, right?
Now I can.
Sorry. Hello, I'm Simon, or Simon, however you like. Yeah, I've been lurking on Cardano for years now, and then I finally met Felix, who was back then in the early swarm. Yeah, he kind of reached out to me, and then I got involved in the swarm sessions. And now I'm part of the swarm community and also a lot of other projects. Yeah.
Thank you. Tim O'Brien.
Yeah, so I'm a career developer, about 15 years in enterprise architecture. Was working for Google, and I got tired of the Silicon Valley life, and I had this idea to make blockchain better and more accessible, abstract its complexity. So I dropped out of Google and I created a company and fully funded by Silicon Valley, and started working with Ethereum and Hyperledger, and was looking for other blockchains that I could integrate with. So I started working with the Cardano team and fell in love with Cardano and fell out of love with being an entrepreneur. So I started looking for more ways to contribute with Cardano. So I've been fairly recent, maybe the last 6 months, fairly active in various communities in Cardano, trying to increase that participation.
Thank you. Finally, Marta.
I've been active in the Swarm and Catalyst for a couple months now, and my background, I was in academia and the arts, interested in interdisciplinary interactions. I worked with scientists at a university, and I'm really interested in alternative interfaces that use, say, passive interfaces rather than screen-based interfaces, to be able to have different types of interactions, especially with indigenous communities. And so I'm really interested in that idea, sort of thinking of different ways to bring information in. And I really I was drawn to Cardano because of Charles's videos and that sort of thing.
Okay, so today in this session, we are going to look into mini proposals, which is a process how to create small scoped proposals. So what today what we are going through is we previously picked up we have a new
Things will break.
Well, that was a trip through cyberspace.
Yeah, way in
That
back.
was exciting.
I did have a follow-up question. It might be a good seg or rewarm us to that. So you say small projects. Can you define small?
Oh, yeah, definitely. As for now, the way I started was 3,000 ADA maximum and maximum 80 hours of work. For now,
Okay.
I did bring up down the requested amount to 2,000 data because I had an experience in Fund 5. I made 3 mini proposals and all of them got over 4 rating. One was 3.9, and they are so one value is that they're so small scope. It's easy for community advisor to understand what's going on and give feedback. And then the rating is usually also better, which is good in current situation because the application always shows the top ranked and the top. So I have 3 proposals and then in the top 5.
Okay. Okay. I see.
So yeah. So now that's but these parameters are changeable for now. I have decided to 2,000 data. But that doesn't mean you cannot do like a 20,000 data proposal. You have to chunk it down to the small snippets. And I think it's actually the smartest way to go.
Yeah, I agree. More traceable.
Yeah, I don't know where I was. Do I share my screen? I do. So let's get into actually the existing mini proposal. So we decided before that we are gonna take already mini proposal what was done in a swap session and try to continue this. So this is an experiment that we will see if we can continue somebody else's idea, and if we can, then this means we have a higher chance to make very co-intelligent like collaborations between people we don't even know. So we started by brainstorming what problems do we see, and then we went down to the root cause of trying, okay, why this is a problem, and ended up with 2 solutions. We are not activating full potential of Cardano community, and there is a disconnect between potential collaborators and opportunities between Project Catalyst. So these are the 2 combined problem statements we are trying to solve here. Then we brainstormed.
Sorry, Tevo, could you just state the problems first as well? The problems at the beginning. So the problems at the beginning was a narrow bridge between Catalyst and social media, and passive Cardano community to engage in interest. So that those were the problems we saw, and then we led on to. Sorry, Tevo, you said you led on to. We are not activating the full potential of the Cardano community, so that's our problem statement. And then another one is there's a disconnect between potential collaborators and opportunities. So what we're hoping to is to develop it on from here. Is that right, Tevo?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something stupid and see if this works. It did. And yeah, then we started brainstorming ideas how to solve these problems. And we came up with two wordings: simple infographics about Catalyst process on Twitter. So we have a specific place and a specific solution. And the second module is up-to-date information in what state you are in process on Twitter. And these are 2 reasons why these were chosen. One is good flow of information helps onboard at the right time. And second is up-to-date solution is helping to convert person to action. And that's it. So now we're going to, any questions so far? Like we can clarify.
Was it social media in general, or did we jump directly to Twitter, or did we discuss like which social media?
Yeah,
There
there was discussion about social media in general, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and even YouTube at start. But this has been scoped really down to Twitter. So,
Okay.
and yeah, I think let's see where it goes, because whatever the solution is, there might be a modular what we can take from what we are going to figure out back to here and apply it to Facebook or somewhere else. So the next chapter, have a searchable name for mini proposals if you have similar proposals. So this is an idea of branding. So that if we are going to create like a list of mini proposals, like we have here two options, we have infographics and then we have up-to-date information. And if we are going to put two of these into Project Catalyst, the idea scale, would we want the users who are going through the process to somehow recognize, oh, they are from the same team, they are addressing the same problem. So they are both like modular parts of that bigger picture. So
Tevo, what would be the value in that? The value in that is that you are more likely to get funded? Is it because if you have modular proposals, if you don't get funded for one, you might get funded for another, or is there another reason?
Honestly, I don't know, but I do believe, my estimation, it does create this kind of branding and belief that, oh, this group has thought it more through and they to provide solutions, not entire big arc of one solution and then you have to choose yes or no on, but it makes it feel like, okay, they are doing it granularly. They are like letting us as a community decide which action, which solutions to use for this problem, and like automatically they make the connection between the team and the idea itself. So next time they see this branding name, let's say we have I don't know, Cardano social. I'm not good at branding names, but that 1-2 words, what now every time they see it, they know what, okay, this is that thing, and this was about that problem. So they can skip some parts of the proposal itself. So because the beginning usually is the same, we are addressing this problem, and this is why this is the metrics we are going to use. But the solution is now different. So they can skip like few paragraphs of text and go to the differences, to the solutions or the roles or target.
What does everyone else think about branding in mini? If you're having lots of different proposals, little proposals, what does everyone else think about having a strong identity? Tim, or do you have any ideas about that?
For me, I think it's rather difficult to find the areas where two proposals can collaborate, and that can sometimes be on the technology, where you may share resources. For instance, like a Haskell developer might work well on both projects. Then you might also build two pieces of software or two components, and they might collaborate well by connecting them. So one is a piece of the other, or they're both a piece of that. And then of course there's that time, the other, where you collapse all the projects into one project and you say, well, our goals are the same, so why should we have two teams working on it? Let's merge the teams. And I think the taxonomies that each of these three approaches bring about is very different. You know, are we building taxonomies around goals? Are we around technologies, or even sort of interface technologies of how different pieces that we're building might actually interface with other technologies? And Yeah, I don't have a solution. I know one can look in the industry and find how people discover these taxonomies, but I think without sort of a organized way to create the taxonomies, then it would be very hard to pick out your partners in either of those three dimensions.
Okay, but how does that now relate to the branding? Do you mean that it's branding is making it siloed and that's why it's harder to like collaborate? Or
So I'm working back from the idea of like Twitter, where you would actually want to maybe create hashtags like, you know, hashtag Haskell, hashtag make NFT better, easier to use. And unless you have some sort of commonly defined taxonomy, there'll be many hashtags that essentially have the same semantic meaning. And that's the problem with sort of systems that try to bridge or describe themselves or a project is finding uniqueness in the taxonomy.
so
And I suppose those taxonomies then should translate to the name of the proposal. Is that what you're thinking, Tevo? Where, because are you thinking about when you search on idea scale for a proposal to make something discoverable?
yeah.
Right. Okay.
Anybody else?
Steven, you had, Steven, you had talked to, you guys hear me? Am I striking up or am I better? Yep, okay. Yeah, so we talked about like what's the value of breaking down a large proposal into smaller granular pieces, and how is that, I think we talked about a little bit about like the branding side of that. There's like the branding side of that, then you're increasing your presence within project or within idea scale, right? With all of your proposals. An example of that is what 5 binaries did. I just noticed what they did in their proposal when I was voting. They had lots of small different pieces. They're building SDKs for a bunch of different individual languages instead of a proposal where it was like, we're going to build an SDK for JavaScript, do like a bunch of different ones. They, as one big proposal, they broke it down to every single language, different proposals. So what that, and they broke it down into smaller prices. So there's a couple effects to that. The positive effect is that it's very easy to kind of track progress with what they're doing and see how much they want to spend with each single part granularly. The more difficult, what makes it a little bit more difficult is on a larger view, it kind of looks like, it's almost like you're spamming the system because there's so many of those same proposals and from the same group. And I guess that's just how it's viewed in idea scale. And if you were to like do that through Twitter as well with like each individual post about that, I'm getting way off topic, I guess.
No, I mean, because
I feel like I'm rambling.
No, it's good. You got 2 good points. One, I think you sort of said on the positive side, what I got from what you're saying, that it's easy if you break down your proposals into a mini proposal. It's easier to track. It's easier to manage. Yeah, and on the other hand, it's it can also look like you're spamming the system. So where if you've got a lot of proposals, then people can say, "Oh, what's going on here? Why is this person? It looks like this person is trying to take over all the space on idea scale." That kind of thing. Is that
yeah,
nice?
you can if you have a lot of good proposals that are well defined and just I guess they get reviewed well, then you are kind of taking over idea scale and kind of monopolizing that space. And if you and when you vote, it's in a linear system. So if your votes show up on the top with your funding, as long as you get funded, it's kind of like a strategy to get funded, right? It's like, it is the best strategy to get funded if you break your ideas into smaller amounts and it's well rated. then you're going to get funded early. And even if your review shows up below a better reviewed proposal with larger funding, you'll still have a better chance of getting funded, because a lot of times once you get to that large proposal, the funding doesn't exist for that one to be proposed. So then by default, the smaller one gets defunded, gets funded, not defunded. And I mean, strategically, you have a better chance of getting funded. I think when it comes to actually building, it's a better method to actually kind of break down the problem into granules. So maybe it's not even a problem at all, but there is potential for abuse there. That's all.
Yeah, I think you're right. So what should determine what level of scale for your proposal, do you think? Is there some kind of method you could think of in terms of, I suppose it's about scope, isn't it? So if you can take the scope of your proposal, and also I suppose it's about risk as well. Let's say you have a big idea, let's say, and you want to get funded. So your strategy is to say, okay, I'm going to break this into 3 proposals, let's say. And then so you try and break the scope down into 3 discrete subjects, for example, in the hope that one of them will be funded. Is that a valid strategy? But maybe we're getting off topic of this exercise. So
no, not at all, because this is something information what I don't have on the mirror board.
Right.
But that is something what I could go on for the next workshop and with new people and already say, okay, what is the value in branding and what are the risks? And we save time iterating through that. But
Okay.
I would like to continue what Tim O'Brien started. What are the common interfaces between the Twitter spaces or the content, and go all of these and see if we can find out. So first, I don't know anything about Twitter. I don't use it. So can somebody knows what is a common interface? I guess nobody.
I would venture that a common interface might be, for me, almost like a technical capability, like when you're trying to find 2 components that can lock together, you can find like a messaging format or a predefined interface so that others can build to this interface. So, for instance, if you're building a messaging system that collaborates across messaging, you would define the API. And so the API could be the common interface. And someone else might say, oh, I can use that API. And that then becomes a point of collaboration.
So the API will be used for, let's say, on-time information is like Townhall starts in 1 hour, and that is sent through an API, and everybody can pull the announcements on that, like making countdowns or putting hype pictures and like quickly sharing it through some kind of different means.
I was thinking of something different, but that seems to have value. I was thinking more what you post to Twitter, like, okay, I'm building something and an API for NFT discovery. And then somebody else who's building something with NFTs has a project that they want to do with NFTs. They can say, well, I can use this API to enrich my project. So in that way, you advertise to the APIs that you will be developing, and somebody else would see those APIs and say, I can use those APIs. And that can be the interface between your project and another person's project, which would be a good spark for collaboration.
Okay, so right now you feel like you brought in a third module here, and expressing idea of sharing projects to onboard new people. Because right now there's two solutions. What came out before was the up-to-date information, what state you are in process on Twitter. And by the process, I could actually add, it was meant by idea scale process. Are you in insight phase? Are you in a proposer stage? Are we waiting for assessments? And this kind of process.
Okay. Okay, maybe I was just on another in another dimension.
Yeah, I mean, Tevo,
For
what I
me,
got, so
yeah.
what I was getting from Tim was more informational interfaces. So like maybe like tagging what you're saying on Twitter, say so that you can attract collaborators. That's what I got from what you're saying, Tim. So,
Yeah.
so more of a social media strategy where you're.
Go ahead. I think you got it. So I was wanting to tackle a specific problem that you see in Twitter where you have overload of hashtags. So, you know, if somebody has some hashtag for project discovery, well, there's so many adjectives that they could choose. So how do you create a basic hashtag? But again, I was just, this is my first session, so that might be, I might be just sort of far off from where we are discussing.
Well, no, it's an interesting idea to develop. So like a basic taxonomy for hashtags, so that you, I mean, I mean, there's interesting aspects there from a marketing perspective, but there's also, it sounds like you want to do that to achieve, like from a signposting. That's why I can like signposting who you are. So I think that does fit into what we're doing, doesn't it, Tevo?
It kind of does, because it was a previous step. We did brainstorm of all these solutions, and you just came up with something we didn't come up with before. But the current goal is to find the solution for one of the ideas what was previously talked about was if we are talking about on-time idea scale discussions, then how do we improve that specific module with the common interface? Okay, so there is a messaging format. I think that it's hard to collaborate from there. But what we would see from common goals, what is the common goal of finding on-time information? Like,
do you mean timely information or?
Oh yes, timely.
Yeah, sorry, I think that's really confused. I think what in the previous session, one of the major issues was the timeliness of social media. So, for example, you can't just post on Twitter. It's much better to post something that is relevant to something at the specific event, it's related to a specific event or a particular stage in your product roadmap, that kind of thing. So that's where a goal would be how to achieve that. How would we achieve that? And that might fit in with your taxonomy approach, Tim, maybe as well, where it's, I suppose taxonomies, I mean, I'm thinking on top of my head here, but it's about clarity, isn't it? It's about knowing who you are and also saying to other people, this is who I am. And also to say to other people, look, come and collaborate with me, you know. But there may be a way of joining together the taxonomy approach with the timeliness approach. So I don't know what that is, but have you any ideas there, Tim?
Is one of the common goals to bring people on the event? Do we want to see increased participation like in here? Like, would that be cool, or is it more important that they just know the event happens and share it to somebody who might want to be interested?
I mean, if the event is a social media event, then it depends, doesn't it? I think Tali might have some ideas here, but because sometimes you want to direct your social media at a specific audience, so it's like a narrow audience, and then other times you might want to have the broadest audience possible. Sorry, Tali.
Yes. So the goal here, or the problem is, we want to find ways to increase engagement with Project Catalyst. Is that the original kind of problem statement again? Or what was the original? I'm getting a little, I think we're getting pretty far away, but what's the original problem statement?
There is a disconnect between potential collaborators and opportunities between Project Catalyst.
Right.
And one of the solutions we are going down is up-to-date information in what state you are in idea scale process.
On Twitter.
Right, through Twitter with hashtags and infographics. So I think timing is really important, because, and there needs to be you need to let people know about what you're doing. And if you let people know about what you're doing, or where you are, or what you're seeking help with, and how to collaborate, there needs to also be a way to onboard people in a way where they're, or other projects, in a way that it's not disruptive to what you're doing, but actually beneficial to what you're doing. I think it would be like, if you just, I'm not sure what the answer is, but I could imagine there'd be a situation where it's like, oh, I want more collaborators for this. So then you just get tons of collaborators and they don't have a place to start or how to onboard. So if we're bringing people together through an infographic that is presenting information to them, the first place they have to go after reading that infographic is an onboarding spot, where it's like they become a little bit more educated about how to contribute, what to do, how your organization works. And that's going to be, I guess it's different for each person. But one part of the problem is awareness of like how to get involved, how to contribute. And the next part of the problem is like the actual process of onboarding and taking part in that process.
So it's not enough just to put a good infographic out there. The infographic has to be timely, it has to be contextual, it has to lead someone, it has to lead the person who's seeing that somewhere else.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It has to actually lead someone to a place where they can take the appropriate action, where the most value can be captured and exchanged actually between the person who finds out what you're doing and what you're doing as a person who has the infographic out there.
That sounds very interesting. I'm wondering, just my own experience with Catalyst 5 is using the technology. It's out there on the Catalyst. I forget which one. It's very asynchronous. You reach out to somebody, hey, maybe we can collaborate, and they don't see it for a week. But where it really worked was when somebody who knew us both said, hey, you two have a lot going on together. Why don't you think about working together? When a third person. So maybe the infographic could actually be like a connector, or it would look at projects and say, hey, you two guys have X amount of similarities. Maybe you should reach out to each other. Basically a matchmaker.
I think that's a great idea. The infographic itself shows similarities, and also kind of urges people with similar places to make that initial first step, and then leave it up to each individual project to figure out their onboarding process.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So it highlights similarities of interest between people, as potentially, again, going maybe back. I'm not so sure on social media how, like, so the social media equivalent might be quote tweeting someone, you know, in a way, or retweeting someone in that sense. So if you can think of the taxonomy as hashtags, yeah, I haven't fully developed what I'm thinking, but you know, so I'm just trying to think how this fits into. You have an infographic that you tweet, and the infographic signposts interests that you have. Okay, then it becomes part of it's time means it becomes part of a campaign. It's related to something you're doing, or it's relating to something that's happening, maybe on the Cardano roadmap. So that this sounds like the ingredients of a social media campaign in a way, you know. So I don't know. I like the idea of the matchmaker. I think that's because but then if you're finding commonalities, then as Tyler said, it's a question of where do you take those people? How do you capture those people? How do you capture that interest?
Yeah, I think because all of us in one way or another are shy about reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, we could collaborate, you know.
Yeah.
If somebody breaks the ice by saying, you know, we've been identified, then I think it makes it much easier.
Okay, and the last one you brought out was common tech. What do you mean by that?
So if collaboration it may be two teams or two individuals may be looking to collaborate, but they don't have a common goal. One may be doing something in NFT, the other might be doing it in smart contract, but they are both using, say, Haskell, you know, or, you know, maybe both doing social media marketing or something. So there's an opportunity, even though they're developing two entirely different products, to still collaborate on a technology sharing basis or resource sharing basis.
So I just shared a message there, but I guess my idea is that if you have the infographic that gives the overall big picture of like where we are within Project Catalyst with the different projects, and then you create a thread that's nested underneath that initial infographic tweet, and each thread has a hashtag with shared technologies that each project has used. And then within that hashtag, you also throw in the handles of the individual projects that share those hashtag similarities. And it's a thread. So NFTs, so hashtag NFTs would be like at NFT DAO or add PlayerMate or at that, and then add DeFi would be, or hashtag DeFi would be at Liquid, at MinSwap, and just do that thread all the way through. And then that each thread is kind of like that little nudge to, hey, you guys should talk to each other. It also groups everyone. So yeah.
I like that.
Okay, and I would, before we head back, we want to do the last one thing so we get done with this chapter. So we mainly did understanding, okay, what is the value of branding, and we went back to kind of brainstorm more solutions to understand our problem. So this gives us insight or what stops us from going without like intuition or like pre-information to continue another person idea basically. So, but that is something I can use as a learning material, and that I think it's quite valuable what we came after. So the next step, like we did from that thing, we can now start thinking about these branding names. For example, right now I got here matchmaker is something interesting. So I tried to brainstorm some words with that. And if you had some thoughts, what could be the branding name or names or a duplicate name or pair, then write it down in the chat or in in this Miro board. Do it
Okay.
in different color, let's say blue, then it's easier for me to see that. And let's take this
And also from
2
a
minutes to
feedback,
do that.
from a feedback perspective, I'd be interested to see how do people feel about being put in the middle of a process? Did you find that disorientating, or did you find that interesting? Tyler or Tim?
So by middle of a process, you mean the way we entered into this this group?
Yeah,
Yeah, stimulating.
stimulating, but yeah.
As I had to sort of try to wrap my head around it quickly, and I had preconceptions, and I think there were a few ideas that had value underneath all the even though I had a lot of preconceptions. Sometimes preconceptions can be make one a little bit creative, creative spark.
So you think that was a good thing? You know, it's a good thing to be put in the middle of something.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it did. I think I used to work in something. There's a guy named Csikszentmihalyi, and he had the thing that if you ask a question randomly, people will give you a much more honest answer and true answer than if you tell them, I'm going to ask you this question at noon.
That's a good technique, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very hard to think of a random question.
Yeah. At Google, we built an app that would you would set questions, and it would just randomly throughout the day throw up a question and then give you like 30 seconds to answer. And that was interesting to me, that people can give more thoughtful answers if they have a short time to think about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Tyler, how did you feel about being thrown into this? Was it a bit disorientating, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of used to it. I feel like no, I mean, like everything you do is kind of always disorientating, right? Like to a certain extent. If you take that mindset and then apply it to other things, it's not that big of a deal. The only thing I'm concerned about in situations like this is that a lot of times there's a lot of work that's gone into something before you jump into it. So I like to be cognizant of like not coming across as like, oh, I have all the answers, when without all of a complete understanding of the work that's gone into a project before I've actually, it's like, hey, how you guys doing? But because that's something like I was like, oh, it's something that kind of prevents me from sharing sometimes in the past. It's like, I don't want to say something where it's like, I feel like I'm wasting people's time because they've already thought about all of this and they realize that's not a great idea.
Do you think that's a resistance in capitalists in general, because you think you come along and you see all this work, especially if you see something, a lot of work that's been done, and you find that, oh, I can't really say anything because that maybe been said before or something like that, or you know, it's just people.
Yeah, I think it could be intimidating for some folks. First, like getting introduced to something there's like this, like so much going on, and it's really impossible. As soon as you let go of the idea that you have to catch up with everything to contribute, then it's fine. But if you feel like you really need to have a thorough understanding of everything that's happened in the past before you can give valuable input, it's going to be nearly impossible to ever catch up, because Project Catalyst is like hundreds of people all working on different things, going in different direction all at the same time. Yeah.
Melanie, how are you feeling about the whole thing? Do you find it overwhelming, or?
Yeah, definitely overwhelming, because the whole process, I'm not used to agile. The mural board is new to me. It becomes overwhelming because it's the process itself. you know, and trying to fit myself into it. But in a way, it's kind of like, you know, a person showing up with in Catalyst and going, oh, I've got this idea, where do I fit in? You know, so it's a very similar experience. And because the groups that have already formed will have a method that they're using to make sense of the ideas. So yeah, I'm finding it a bit of a challenge, and I don't know that I can offer much in the details because I jumped in, fascinated by the process. And I think what I'll probably do next week is jump in on this one again so that it's familiar to me again, and maybe I'll have more input. But it's been really good to just sit back and watch and try and make sense of what you guys are saying, because the lingo is different as well.
And that varies from workshop to workshop and session to session, the methods and the language changes.
Yeah, it's there's a lot, and I have a lot in my head from years of experience, so it's hard to make space for more. But yeah, willing to try.
So building up that familiarity with a method, that's why you might want to come back to this one again.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Speaking
And then
of,
and then I feel like I'll have a bit more of a contribution to this. My sense from this is that you're trying to work out a system for somebody coming into mini proposals. Is that right, Tevo? Rather than actually figuring out this particular system around Twitter. That's the idea. You're trying to work out a method that somebody comes in with a mini proposal, and this is the way that we work it through. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
the basic
Well,
idea
then
is
that's good, because
this, what we did right now is was just testing, is this guideline and my explanation helps to get the conversation going and getting some result on the Miro board itself, and to fill out these kinds of stuff. So
yeah, it works. There's two things that I'd like to point out.
One day we got a phone call. There was a box.
Sorry, I'd like to say that I really appreciate that you drew me into the circle, because I was going to just sit back and not say anything. And the other thing is that you went back to the beginning and reviewed where we were, because there was enough of new people coming in. So I really appreciate that, because that would have been really difficult to go. I would have been entirely lost if you hadn't taken me back to the beginning to explain it again. And again, I apologize because I came in late, but I appreciate it. Okay.
Really throws me back hearing you, Melanie. You know, when I first started out, and I think I feel like we all went through that. And if I may add on, I think it's really interesting what you said, Tim, and I can also second what Tala said about you know, this might maybe being a bit intimidating, but then like the whole ecosystem is all over the place, and yeah, just wanted to say that.
and
I suppose it's also about keeping things moving in a way, and but you know, but I hear what you say, Melanie, about always being able to find your feet. So returning back to a point of reference. So if you come in, you know, people in these sessions, people can't always arrive at the same time, you know. So and so we sometimes will have to anchor ourselves, you know, back to the beginning again, so we can start off.
Well, it's good to come without preconceived ideas, and then you don't know where you're going to end up. So I like this ride.
okay, well, thank you for joining. I'm gonna stop the recording.